Barron Trump considered the manager's words carefully. He didn't want to cause a scene, but he also wasn't inclined to back down over a principle he felt strongly about. With a calm smile, he replied, "I appreciate your position, but this hat isn't meant to offend anyone. It's a part of who I am and what I believe in. I came here to enjoy lunch peacefully, just like everyone else." The manager's jaw tightened. "I'm sorry, but our policy is non-negotiable," he said, his voice more insistent now. Before Barron could respond, a voice from a nearby table broke the tension. "Let the kid eat," said an older man, his tone firm but non-confrontational. Heads turned toward the speaker, a distinguished-looking gentleman who appeared to command respect. A murmur spread through the restaurant as other patrons began voicing their opinions. Some supported the manager, while others sided with the older man. Amid the growing buzz, Barron stood up, his towering presence commanding attention. "I didn't come here to create division," he said, his voice carrying across the room. "I'll respect your rules and leave, but I hope this serves as a reminder that mutual respect should go both ways." With that, he removed the hat, placed it on the table for a moment, and then picked it up along with his belongings. As he walked toward the door, a few diners clapped quietly, acknowledging his poise in the situation. Others remained silent, reflecting on what had unfolded. The incident quickly became the talk of the city, sparking debates about freedom of expression, private policies, and public decorum. For Barron, it was just another day of navigating life in the spotlight, gracefully, with his head held high. Creating spaces for dialogue and understanding, Barron realized this wasn't just about him or a hat. It was about a bigger issue of bridging divides and fostering respect, even in disagreement. Inspired, he drafted a short post for his social media accounts. He shared the story, but without malice or blame. He wrote, "Today I was asked to leave a restaurant because of the hat I wore. While I respect their policy, it left me thinking, can't we create spaces where people of all beliefs and backgrounds coexist peacefully? Disagreement shouldn't mean division. Let's find ways to connect, even when we see the world differently." He hit post and set his phone down. He wasn't sure how people would respond, but he felt good about focusing on the larger message. Over the next few hours, his post gained traction. Thousands of comments poured in, with people from all sides sharing their thoughts. Some supported him wholeheartedly, praising his calm demeanor. Others argued in favor of the restaurant's right to enforce its policies. The conversation quickly expanded beyond his story, sparking broader discussions about tolerance and freedom of expression. By evening, several news outlets picked up the story. Journalists reached out, curious about his perspective, but Barron declined interviews, choosing instead to let the message speak for itself. Meanwhile, at the restaurant, the manager began to feel the weight of his decision. Some patrons expressed support, but others criticized his handling of the situation. A few even suggested that a more balanced approach might have turned the moment into something positive rather than polarizing. A week later, Barron received a message from the restaurant's manager. It was brief but sincere. "Mr. Trump, I've had time to reflect on our interaction. While I stand by our policy, I regret how I handled it. I appreciate the way you conducted yourself and hope we can all learn from this experience." Barron replied graciously, thanking the manager for reaching out. To him, the exchange was proof that even small gestures of understanding could make a difference. The story eventually faded from headlines, but for many, it served as a reminder. Respect and empathy can go a long way, even in the face of conflict. For Barron, it was a lesson in staying true to his values while striving to build bridges, one conversation at a time. Barron's eyes lit up as he scribbled the idea in his notebook. A public fundraiser, an event designed to promote dialogue, understanding, and unity. It wouldn't be about politics or taking sides, but about bringing people together to discuss and celebrate shared values. He reached out to a close friend who worked in event planning. "I want to organize something," he explained over the phone. "A fundraiser that shows we can disagree and still respect each other. Think community, conversation, and connection." His friend was intrigued and immediately offered to help. Barron decided the fundraiser would support a cause everyone could rally behind: education and mentorship programs for underserved communities. He believed that fostering education and critical thinking was a way to empower future generations to bridge divides. Over the next few days, Barron worked tirelessly, contacting local businesses, nonprofits, and even artists to participate. He wanted the event to be inclusive, with food, music, and panels on topics like freedom of expression and finding common ground in polarized times. As word of the event spread, something unexpected happened. L.A. Terrace, the restaurant where the incident had occurred, reached out. The manager, whose initial response had drawn criticism, offered to sponsor the event by providing catering. "I realize I may have mishandled things," the manager admitted in an email. "I'd like to support your effort to turn this into something positive." Barron accepted the offer, seeing it as a small but meaningful step toward reconciliation. The event, titled Common Ground, A Night of Unity, was held in a local park a few weeks later. Hundreds of people showed up, including many who had seen the original incident unfold online. There was live music, inspiring speeches, and open forums where attendees could share their perspectives. Barron took the stage briefly to thank everyone. "This isn't about me," he said. "It's about us, all of us, finding ways to connect, even when we disagree. We can choose understanding over division, and I think that's worth celebrating." The fundraiser was a massive success, raising tens of thousands of dollars for the education programs. But more importantly, it left attendees with a renewed sense of hope that unity was still possible in a divided world. The story of Barron's initiative gained national attention, not for the initial controversy, but for how he turned a moment of conflict into an opportunity for healing. For Barron, it was proof that even small actions could lead to meaningful change when approached with purpose and grace. Volunteers arrived early, setting up tables, tents, and a small stage. A large banner hung across the entrance reading, "Common Ground, Building Bridges, Not Walls." The message was clear. This wasn't about sides or blame. It was about finding unity in diversity. Food trucks lined the street, offering free meals to attendees, many of which were donated by local businesses that supported Barron's vision. Musicians and speakers prepared for their performances, and donation boxes for underprivileged community programs were strategically placed around the venue. As the event began, people from all walks of life gathered. Some came out of curiosity, others because they were inspired by the message. Among them were those who had been at L.A. Terrace the day of the incident, their faces familiar to Barron. He greeted them warmly, showing no resentment, but rather gratitude for their presence. The first speaker, a local community leader, took the stage to share a story about the power of dialogue. Then came a panel discussion featuring educators, activists, and even a restaurant owner who had faced similar challenges. They talked about creating inclusive spaces and how to navigate disagreements with respect. The highlight of the event was when Barron took the stage. He stood confidently, the same red MAGA hat resting on a nearby table, a silent reminder of how this all began. "I want to thank everyone for being here today," he began. "This isn't about who's right or wrong. It's about what happens next. When conflict arises, we have two choices. We can let it divide us, or we can let it challenge us to grow. Today, we chose growth." Barron paused, scanning the crowd. "We all have our differences, but that's what makes us stronger. This event isn't just a response to what happened, it's a step towards something better. Let's remember that understanding doesn't mean agreeing, it means listening, respecting, and finding ways to move forward together." The crowd erupted in applause, some cheering, others visibly moved. Even the manager of L.A. Terrace, who had been watching discreetly from the doorway, seemed affected. By the end of the day, the fundraiser had exceeded its goals, raising substantial funds for underprivileged communities and sparking countless conversations among attendees. People left not just with full hearts, but also with a sense of hope that change was possible, even in small moments. The story made headlines again, but this time, the narrative had shifted. Instead of focusing on division, the media highlighted the power of reconciliation and Barron's efforts to turn a negative experience into a positive movement. For Barron, the day wasn't about vindication. It was about showing the world that unity could be found, even in places of conflict. And as he stood among the diverse crowd, he felt a sense of fulfillment. This was only the beginning. Approached the manager hesitantly. "You know," the waiter began, "maybe this is something we can learn from. Look at what he's done out there. It's not about the hat anymore. It's about bringing people together." The manager stayed silent for a moment, his gaze fixed on the bustling scene outside. He watched as families laughed, strangers mingled, and the community came alive in a way he hadn't seen before. The knot of regret in his chest tightened. "I didn't think it would turn into all this," he admitted quietly, almost to himself. The waiter nodded. "It's never too late to be part of something good. You could go out there, show your support. It might mean more than you think." The manager hesitated but eventually stepped outside. As he walked toward the fundraiser, he felt eyes on him. A few people whispered, recognizing him from the incident, but no one approached him with hostility. Instead, they seemed curious about what he would do next. Barron, noticing the manager's presence, walked over to him. For a moment, there was silence between them. Then Barron extended his hand. "Thanks for coming," he said, his tone genuine. The manager shook his hand, his expression a mixture of humility and relief. "I misjudged you," he admitted, "and I may have misjudged the situation. This is impressive. I want to apologize for how I handled things." Barron smiled. "It's not about apologies," he said. "It's about what we do moving forward. If you're here, that's already a step in the right direction." The two men shared a nod of understanding before parting ways. The manager joined the crowd, mingling with attendees and even visiting some of the charity booths. By the end of the day, he had pledged to support some of the organizations involved in the event. As the fundraiser wound down, Barron stood back, watching the sun set over what had turned into a remarkable day. The once quiet block was now filled with laughter, music, and connection. What had started as a moment of division had transformed into an example of unity. For Barron, it wasn't just about proving a point. It was about showing that even in moments of conflict, there's always room for growth, understanding, and change. And as the event came to a close, he knew this was only the beginning of something bigger. The manager stared at the email, reading it over and over again. The words, though calm, carried weight. For the first time, he allowed himself to question his decision, not just the action of asking Barron to leave, but the broader message it sent. He glanced at the window, where the event outside continued to grow. The sound of laughter, music, and applause seeped faintly through the walls. It was a stark contrast to the silence of his nearly empty restaurant. The server's words echoed in his mind. "Maybe you should go out there." After a long moment of hesitation, he stood, straightened his tie, and walked out of his office. His staff looked up as he emerged, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and hope. "I'm going outside," he said quietly. The air outside was warm, filled with the hum of conversation and the upbeat rhythm of live music. The crowd parted slightly as the manager stepped forward, some recognizing him immediately. Whispers rippled through the attendees, but no one approached him aggressively. Barron noticed him and made his way over. His expression was calm, almost welcoming. "Good to see you," Barron said, extending his hand. The manager hesitated for a moment before shaking it. I just wanted to say I might have been wrong. About yesterday. About you." He paused, searching for the right words. "I thought I was protecting something, but maybe I was just shutting out something I didn't understand." Barron nodded, his demeanor gracious. "It's not easy to admit that, and I respect you for it. This isn't about who's right or wrong. It's about what we can learn from each other." The manager glanced around at the event. The smiling faces, the sense of unity that seemed to fill the air. "You've done something remarkable here. I'd like to help if I can." Barron smiled. "There's always room for more bridges to be built." For the rest of the afternoon, the manager joined the fundraiser, speaking with attendees, visiting charity booths, and even pledging support from LA Terrace for future community initiatives. His presence didn't go unnoticed. Many attendees commended him for stepping out and engaging. By the end of the day, something had shifted, not just for the manager, but for everyone involved. What began as a moment of division had turned into a powerful example of reconciliation and growth. The next morning, a joint statement was released from Barron and the manager, emphasizing the importance of dialogue, understanding, and the commitment to creating spaces where everyone felt valued. It was a story that resonated far beyond Los Angeles, inspiring similar conversations and events in other communities. For the manager, it was a humbling experience, but one he knew he'd grow from. And for Barron, it was a reminder that even in moments of conflict, there's always a chance to build something better together. I need to start by saying I was wrong, the manager began, his voice steady but tinged with regret. Not just in how I handled the situation yesterday, but in how I approached it altogether. I thought I was protecting something, our image, our policies. But I realize now that I was just shutting out something I didn't fully understand. Barron listened intently, his expression open and calm. He nodded, encouraging the manager to continue. I told myself it was about neutrality, about keeping the peace, the manager went on. But the truth is, I think I was afraid of conflict, of backlash, of making the wrong choice. And in trying to avoid all of that, I made a decision that hurt someone who didn't deserve it. Barron's eyes softened. It takes courage to admit that, he said. And for what it's worth, I don't hold any anger toward you. What happened yesterday wasn't just about us. It was about something bigger. It's why I wanted to turn this into a chance to bring people together, rather than drive them further apart. The manager looked at Barron, his unease giving way to a hint of gratitude. You've done something incredible here. I've been watching all day, and I can see how much this means to people. I want to be part of it, if you'll let me. I want to help support these organizations, this message, and maybe try to make amends. Barron smiled, extending his hand once more. We all make mistakes, he said. What matters is what we do to make things better. And if you're willing to be part of this, then you're already taking that step. The two men shook hands, and the crowd erupted into applause, their tension transforming into a shared sense of hope. Some people even cheered, others clapped, as they watched the powerful moment unfold. For the rest of the evening, the manager immersed himself in the event, talking to attendees, learning about the organizations involved, and even making a public pledge to host future community events at LA Terrace. His sincerity was evident, and it didn't go unnoticed. By the time the fundraiser came to an end, the energy in the air had shifted. The event had not only raised significant funds for the causes it supported, but had also sparked conversations and connections that many felt would last long after the day was over. As the sun finally set and the crowd began to disperse, Barron stood at the edge of the block, watching as volunteers packed up the last of the equipment. The manager approached him one last time. Thank you, the manager said simply. Not just for today, but for giving me a chance to make things right. Barron nodded. Thank you for stepping out and being willing to change. That's what this is all about. The two men parted ways, both knowing that the day had marked a turning point, not just for them, but for everyone who had witnessed what happened. It was a reminder that even in moments of division, there's always room for understanding, growth, and unity.